The chosen one. This message did not find you by chance. God sent you here on purpose. Perhaps you've been wondering whether any of it mattered. Perhaps you have been wondering whether anybody saw the sacrifices. Silent tears. When you obeyed God, it cost you everything. Let this be a heavenly confirmation. Heaven's seen it all. Nobody other recognized what God saw. He heard every prayer. You murmured through tears. He counted each time you remained faithful, when it would have been simpler to walk away. This message is more than just encouragement. This is a spiritual announcement. God is proud of you and everything you've accomplished in obedience. In love, in private, it is soon to be rewarded publicly. There are 7 chapters. Heaven wants you to comprehend now. Before we delve in, please like, share, and subscribe. Because this message is more than simply substance. It is a heavenly assurance for the selected ones. And to everyone who has shown love via great gratitude. Thank you. Deeply. May God generously bless you. Your encouragement, presence, and willingness to keep connected are not overlooked. You are a part of the divine unfolding. And heaven sees you too. If your spirit senses this frequency, type in the comments right now. That number is not random. It's a divine signal, a prophetic echo that you're aligned, awake, and ready to accept the open prize for all you've done in secret. Prayers, sacrifices, obedience, and quiet. Not everyone will read this full letter. Only those who are genuinely selected will be given clarity, security, and heavenly proof that God is happy of them. This word has prophetic significance, and if your soul has been waiting for a sign that your silent effort has been seen, this is it. This is not something you hear once and then forget about. This is a living word, a heavenly reminder that heaven has maintained records. Watch it again when your heart is tired. Play it again when you need strength. Because with each listen, another layer of heavenly affirmation will emerge, and you will remember that heaven saw what you accomplished. Let's go deeper. Chapter 1. God saw you standing when you might have been the chosen one. Let's start with the instances when no one applauded, but heaven embraced the times. You try to make a little concession to make things simpler or quicker, but there's something within. You said no. That something was the Holy Spirit. You may have chosen convenience over making a call. You might have followed the herd, watered down your truth, and chosen the easy path. But instead you held steady even when it was lonely and cost you dearly. God ensured that no act of obedience went unnoticed. No sacrifice went unappreciated in heaven's record. There were times when you were given shortcuts that appeared appealing on the surface, but would have forced you to compromise your own spirit. You felt pressured to blend in, say yes, and just play the game. Instead, you kept your soul pure. You kept your motivations clean. You maintained your identity based on who God called you to be, rather than what others expected of you. That was not easy. There were evenings when you questioned yourself. Sometimes you glanced about and saw others flourishing while you remained in the desert. But don't be tricked. Some of those folks won the world, but lost themselves. You, however, have chosen the everlasting way. You went the gradual path, which produces substance rather than simply surface. And heaven took notice. Angels saw you decline while your body wanted to say yes. God ridiculed every time you turned away from anything that seemed nice because you realized it wasn't God. That's a distinct kind of strength. That's unusual in a culture that values compromise and rewards accomplishment. You prioritized character above comfort. You chose obedience over acclaim. You chose purpose above popularity. And now God is planning something you cannot conceive. An award that reflects the calm strength you demonstrated. The gifts that will come your way are more than simply recompense. They are confirmation. Confirmation that standing alone does not make you insane. Confirmation that your moral bravery was never ineffective. You did not conform to the world. So now heaven is leaning towards you. The chosen one. You were not ignored. You were being observed. You were not forgotten. You were being created. Every note you uttered to the incorrect thing made room for the right thing. Every time you chose integrity over pleasure, you created a legacy that heaven can breathe on. Get ready. What is coming your way is not at random. It's a prize, not just for what you did, but also for what you chose not to do. And when it arrives, you'll understand why it took so long. You did not fold. and God is going to reveal the full extent of his favor in your life. Chapter 2. God observed the weeping. Nobody else did. The selected one. Some of the most intense agony you have ever felt was never observed by another human being. You carried burdens and silently. You sobbed in areas where nobody could hear you. You smiled even in rooms when your heart was aching. And you loved them sincerely while feeling absolutely invisible. You continued to show up despite having every reason to quit. You poured into others while your own spirit was dry. You showed compassion when all you needed was a shoulder to rest on. You prayed for people's healing while quietly bleeding within. Despite everything, you persisted. You did not collapse. You did not give up. You didn't blaspheme God or get resentful and didn't notice. God noticed every cry. Not a single drop was lost. The same God who counts the hairs on your head has counted every tear you have shed. Every sleepless night. Everyone whispered, "God, I'm not sure how much more I can take." Every time you tried to be strong while everything inside of you was breaking apart. It was documented, remembered, and welcomed as a precious sacrifice. Your anguish was not in vain. It became the soil into which God planted deep roots of trust, patience, compassion, and knowledge. What seemed to be anguish was in fact holy and molding. He utilized the shattered spots to create something lovely inside you. And while people couldn't see it, God was transforming you into someone stronger, smarter, and more spiritually powerful than you'd ever been. There were moments. You were surrounded by people but felt absolutely alone. You waged quiet fights while others admired your courage. They had no idea you were guiding and encouraging them while struggling to keep your composure. You were fatigued but loyal, afraid but obeying, hurt but yet optimistic. Human strength cannot provide that level of endurance. It comes from God's Spirit that lives inside you. You should be aware of this. The tears you shed did not merely evaporate. These are seeds. Seeds were planted on the soil of anguish. And those seeds are going to grow, bringing pleasure, breakthrough, and blessings. Every tear, every moment of suffering, is being used by God as a witness. Into the season of honey, heaven is providing rehabilitation not just emotionally, but also spiritually, cognitively, and monetarily. The weight you've borne in silence is being lifted. The years you spent surviving are going to transform into plenty, not because you asked, but because you persevered. Because you believed him even when it didn't make sense, and you praised him while going through fire. There is glory in your name. Peace has returned to your heart. Joy is being restored to your soul. And it isn't simply a reward. It is a heavenly answer. God is saying, "I saw everything, and now I'm answering." Let this be your confirmation. You are never neglected. You're never forgotten. In reality, your concealed tears made you heaven's top priority. And now, what was done in private will be honored publicly. The same God who carried you through the valley is now guiding you to triumph. You sobbed, but didn't stop. You wept, but you continued to worship. You broke, but you remained in God's hands. And now he's going to create something with your tale that will benefit not just you, but future generations. God observed the weeping. Nobody else did. And now, all of heaven is working for you. Chapter 3. God saw your stillness when you could have fought back. The chosen one. There were instances where your name appeared in rooms your feet had never entered. People misinterpreted your motives. They insulted your progress. They mistook your goodwill for weakness and turned your quiet into something to laugh at. They gave one version of the tale, theirs, and they portrayed you as the villain. You could have revealed the truth. You had the facts. You had the proof. You had the receipts. But instead of applauding, you took a step back. That's the decision. It was not easy, but it was sacred. You did not remain silent because you did not have a voice. You remained silent because you realized your voice was too important to squander, demonstrating your innocence to those who were determined to misunderstand you. That level of restriction is not natural. It is spiritual. You choose to give over your reputation to God. You provided him the case, the courtroom, and the results. And once you did, heaven took over. God witnessed your name being dragged as you were on your knees, pleading him to help you not grow bitter. He witnessed you grieve over the treachery. He He saw you biting your mouth while falsehoods attempted to destroy your character. You did not retaliate. You didn't write about it. You did not start a war. You allowed God to wage the war. And the chosen one has the type of power that shakes the spiritual universe. The opponent wants you to react, blow up, lash out, and lose your advantage. But you didn't. You remained motionless. And amid that calm, God was working behind the scenes, deep inside hearts, beyond what you could see. People perceived your quiet as weakness, but God recognized it as wisdom. They assumed you were withdrawing, but you were only being relocated. There are awards being released to you right now as a result of how you handled the situation. You could have gone lower, but you chose higher. You could have argued using words, but you chose to worship instead. Heaven will never forget that level of maturity. It is the kind of self-control that prepares you for advancement. God is now planning something more than simply an apology. He's prepared for restoration. He is prepared for an elevation. And when it occurs, there will be no vengeance. It will come with serenity. It will provide delight. It will come with unquestionable favor, which even your adversaries will have to accept. This is not simply about being correct. It is about being righteous. You choose righteousness. You opted to preserve your spirit rather than your appearance. You trusted God to manage something you could have done on your own. As a result, He's going to speak so loudly in your life that every falsehood ever said will be drowned out by the noise of your triumph. Your quiet was not empty. It was sacrosanct. And now it's reverberating through heaven like a trumpet. The moment has come for those who lied to be held accountable. God bless you freely, not as retaliation, but as atonement. You remained silent. Now God is speaking. You remained pure. Now God is promoting. You remained loyal. God is now satisfying the chosen one. Your quiet did not indicate weakness. It was a worship service. And heaven witnessed everything. Chapter 4. God saw the way you loved. Even if the chosen one did not reciprocate your feelings, there is a kind of love that can only come from above. The type that persists even when it is not returned, even if it is denied, even though it is taken for granted. And it is the type of love you provided. You emptied yourself out for individuals who never expressed gratitude. You provided grace to those who remained silent. You extended allegiance to those who turned their backs. You needed it the most. And you still loved. You loved through the disappointment that you cherished, through the delays in their development. You loved without seeking affirmation, not because it was simple, but because God's Spirit was present inside you. It was not a weakness. It was war. Every time you chose love over hatred, you were fighting a spiritual battle. You were demonstrating to the adversary that your heart could not be poisoned, and that no matter what happened to you, your character would not be a reflection of your misery. God observed how you remained sensitive. Even when the world expected you to harden, He witnessed how you gave freely, how you checked in on folks who had never checked in with you, how you remained present in life when you were continuously pushed to the background. He noticed the tears. You grieved after loving someone who was emotionally unavailable, aloof, or contemptuous. He saw the occasions when you questioned yourself. Why do I keep giving while getting so little? The solution came because you were contemplating, and God picked one. The love you offered was not squandered. It was witnessed. Heaven recorded everything. Each act of compassion, every word of encouragement. Every time you sat with someone in their anguish while your own was silently ripping you apart, you assumed no one saw. You assumed it didn't matter. But God saw, and it meant more than you realize. You did not cease loving just because you were not loved in the same manner. In exchange, you did not let unpleasant individuals transform you into one of them. You did not lock off your heart or allow your love to become cold. And it makes you unique. In a world filled with bitterness and sorrow, it suggests your heart remains fertile ground for wonders. And now, the love you gave in trust is returning to you, not from the same individuals, but from God's selected replacements. God is encircling you with love that is founded on respect, loyalty, honor, and truth. Love that nourishes rather than drains. Love that protects you in the same manner you've protected others. Don't be shocked if new individuals start to enter your life. People who see you clearly cherish you dearly and love you unconditionally. This is heaven's method of returning what your heart freely contributed, not only will your cup be replenished, but it will overflow with new relationships, divine connections, and soul-aligned communities. Because when God rewards love, He does not just return it evenly. He returns it generously. You loved without praise. You forgave without providing closure. You donated without expecting anything back. And now you have selected one to accept in a manner that reflects God's love. The earth hasn't returned your love, but heaven always does. And this time, it will be pure, purposeful, and authentic. Chapter 5. God noticed you and picked one even though you had absolutely nothing. Let us speak about sacrifice. Not the sort that people do when it's easy, but the kind you created when it cost you all you had. When you did not have enough for yourself, you shared. When you were silently suffering, you poured into others, hoping that someone, somewhere, would pour into you. Even when no one else did, you didn't stop. Even if your own cup was running low, you opted to be a vessel. There was trust. There was obedience. This was love in action. You stitched silently. You contributed not from abundance, but from surrender. Your offer was more than simply a financial one. It was spiritual. You invested time with individuals who depleted you. You instilled prayer in people who did not pray for you. You devoted every last ounce of energy to develop bravery and serve, even when no one cheered or noticed. But God did. The heavens beheld the times. You chose charity above self-preservation. You did not withhold out of fear. You gave with trust. You did not give up your desire to be noticed. You agreed to remain obedient. You were not donating out of comfort. You were giving up the covenant. You recalled what Scripture stated. He who sows sparingly will likewise reap sparingly, and those who sow abundantly will reap richly. And you think that even when it hurts a now chosen one, it will come back, not in trickles or crumbs, but in plenty, since the seed you planted in agony has prepared you for a harvest of serenity. The land may have seemed dry when you planted, but it was fruitful in the soul. You weren't sowing into individuals, but into a mission. Your compliance has had a rippling effect in worlds you cannot see. Your sacrifice has created benefits for your future, family, and legacy. You didn't wait for overflow. And that is precisely why heaven has placed its faith in you right now. You donated when it hurt. So God is now returning the favor in the form of healing. You sown while bleeding and will reap in completeness. God has observed every quiet transaction. Every time you contributed without being asked. Every time you provided assistance, prayer, or encouragement when you needed it the most. That kind of heart is unusual. That level of generosity moves heaven. That type of trust unleashes heavenly multiplication. So don't believe it was a waste. Not a single seed when ignored. Not one act of obedience will be void. What you sowed in secret is ready to bloom in the open. God is preparing for the harvest. You will not just satisfy your requirements. It will surpass them. Provision will not be the only thing on the way. This is evidence. Proof that God values sacrifice, rewards fidelity, and observes all you do for others. When you believe no one will notice your selected one, prepare. You pass the drought-related giving exam. You're entering the season of miraculous deluge. Not because you earned it, but because you persevered. And heaven is going to reply in a manner that only it can. Chapter 6. God saw your healing without closure. The chosen one. This aspect of your trip required more strength than anybody can ever realize. It was quiet, not loud. You had to weep for something that was never resolved. You have to discharge those who never accepted responsibility for their actions. You had to relearn how to breathe in areas that had previously smothered you with questions. Why did they do that? Did I deserve it? Will they finally confess the truth? And you still chose healing. Not because it was fair, not because it made sense, but because you refused to be defined by your brokenness. You refused to allow someone else's quiet destroy your sanity. You did not get the closure. You earned the apologies, credit, and clarification. But you have something greater. Peace. You decided to stop rehashing what had occurred and begin reconstructing what was left. You shifted your focus from seeking solutions to pursuing completeness. That did not imply the pain ended overnight. It did not imply you forgot. It means you decided your independence was more essential than their appreciation. And the choice came from a heavenly place. That choice was made by the Spirit of God inside you. Heaven saw every internal conflict you engaged in while smiling in public. You always revised the same text, but never submitted it. Every time, you remained mute. Not because you lacked words, but because you no longer wanted to fight. God observed the weeping. You wailed on the floor, asking, "Lord, please help me let this go." Even as your body tried to cling on, He saw how you chose His path, the narrow road of grace, forgiveness, and inward surrender. You did not wait for them to apologize. You did not wait for them to make things right. You allow God to make you right. That represents heavenly maturity. That exemplifies kingdom power. You accepted the scars, betrayals, ghosted discussions, and quiet departures. You lay them at God's feet, and He started healing you from the inside out. Now look at yourself. You are lighter. You are more clear. You are no longer defined by their actions or inactions. You are identified by how God dealt with your brokenness. He transformed it into wisdom. He transformed it into a mission. He transformed it into a healing testimony that others would someday need. And here's the holy truth. Healing without closure is one of heaven's finest accolades, since it indicates that you trusted God to complete the chapter. Even when others wouldn't, it shows you thought your future was more important than your misery. And this makes you dangerous, because nothing can stop someone who has been healed by God's hand rather than the hands of selected people. You are no longer walking wounded. You're walking free. You aren't waiting for justice. You are carrying joy. You aren't locked in the past. You are entering a time of promise. And don't be shocked if the people who never offered you closure start to notice your success. Not out of spite, but as evidence. Proof that God's healing is superior than human validation. Proof that you can move on from bitterness. People mending things does not create freedom. God fills it. Chapter 7. God is preparing to reward you freely. The selected one. Every holy journey culminates in a time when what was done in secret is rewarded in public. And your time has arrived. Every prayer you uttered when no one was listening. Every act of compassion you performed without expecting anything in return. Every time you assisted someone, even while you were in pain, you chose obedience over praise, humility over hype, holiness, and compromise. Heaven took notice, and now heaven is preparing to reply. God has seen your efforts in secret places. You remained loyal even while no one was applauding. You served without being noticed. You provided without acknowledgement. You sowed seeds in quiet. And now the quiet seasons are ready to speak out. The harvest is in, and it's not at random. It's the outcome of a life spent in secrecy, a heart submitted behind closed doors, and a soul decided to worship God even while the spotlight was not shining. You wondered whether you had been forgotten. You felt neglected at times. But the fact is that you were being kept. You were not being refused. You were being honed. Because what God has planned for you demands the weight of character. It was forged in quiet. And now what He's going to reveal cannot be halted, postponed, or denied. The chosen one. The season is moving. Not gradually. Suddenly, previously closed doors spring open. People who previously disregarded you will now be witnesses to what God is doing. However, this is not about proving yourself to them. This is about God demonstrating Himself through you. He demonstrates to the world what it looks like when someone chooses obedience over shortcuts, purity over fame, and sacrifice over self-promotion. God has prepared a table for you with your name on it. It's been reserved for righteousness. It is guarded by angels. It has been paid in full, not with money, but with your tears and submission. Yes, and when you sit down, you'll understand that wasn't simply a reward. It was a miraculous indication that all you had gone through, released, and waited for had not been in vain. This table is not for egos. It's about evidence. Evidence that God continues to honor those who respect Him. Evidence that obedience still results in overflow. Evidence that concealed loyalty is never overlooked. So do not shrink. Accomplish, not apologize for what God is going to accomplish in your life. Don't doubt the gifts that are coming your way. This isn't luck. This isn't a coincidence. This is a covenant. God is carrying out His word over your life in front of people who believed your narrative was done. He is not encouraging you to flex. He has blessed you to fulfill, to keep the pledge, to meet the objective, to carry out the prophetic word proclaimed over you long ago. Heaven is clapping right now, not because you were flawless, but because you were loyal. You remained. You served. You stood. You survived. Now it's time to be seen. Prepare for favor to find you. Get ready for glory to pursue you. Prepare for solutions to fall into place seamlessly. Prepare for blessings to stream without effort.